Welcome back to part 2. Part 2 of Decision Code Story. Chapter 6, The Protector. Functionary's mood got better after the voting, and at some moment later, his attention was attracted with an incoming message that popped up on a personal pad. Gentlemen, attention please, he addressed the council members. I just had a report that the Protector project passed all tests and is ready for launch. I implore you to stay here a bit more. Council members, already leaving the hall, got back in their places. Excuse me. About 20 minutes passed in silence, but suddenly a strange noise appeared somewhere behind the walls. Heavy rattling, it resembled the performance of some machine. Then doors opened and something entered the hall. It was a robot, about 10 feet high, equipped with versatile armament. Despite its size and weight, it seemed to be very mobile. It also had a huge shield large enough to cover a group of people attached to its left manipulator as a modification. The shield was embellished with a state blazon and a police caption below it. At its top, the robot carried several spotlights and flashing beacons of red and blue color. Astonished, council members remained speechless. Behold! A creation of our best engineers and the latest word in robotics. The Protector! Functionary exclaimed. A police machine that is able to terminate any riots and capture any criminal. It carries heavy weapons and armor, providing wide options for modification and improvement. Almost all models are equipped with gas and flashbang grenades. It can drop shock traps and throw dragnet for cases of especially dangerous criminals. A set of these machines has already been sent to the MPD. Special transport vehicles will deliver it to any place in the country. From this day forward, they will get on guard for the peace of our citizens, keeping order in the streets. We secured ourselves for years in advance, and no rebel can take down the Protector, Functionary exulted. Who operates it? Minister of Truth asked. One of our specialists. But as soon as we activate the Metatron code, operation of all machines will be delivered to Spybot. The head of Burrow explained. But this thing could harm the innocent, and the algorithm is not yet clear. The speaker opposed again. The innocent? You mean the malcontent? Functionary hissed. There is always a place for inaccuracy, but the end justifies the means, and you, speaker, should better think of your own career, not of some innocent's career. Serve and protect. No, that was not it. Sorry. And we're back. Chapter 7: The Accident. Rebel slithered past patrol drones and went through the entrance of Artist's house. The staircase was covered in dark, and just a dull light of fluorescent lamp, placed high on the ceiling, fell on the stairs. Sorry. The staircase was covered in a dark and just a dull light of fluorescent lamp placed high on the ceiling fell on the stairs. Artist was already waiting for her and rarely opened the door after hearing the knock code. He prepared for her visit by putting down the window shutters. But the only thing he forgot to do is to take the battery out of his smartphone and put the device into a special insulating box. He always did that in any case when the struggle for freedom was involved somehow. People laughed at him and claimed he was paranoid. But the habit could hardly be broken after all these years. However, this time he was in a grave hurry, so his device remained on the table. Nice door you have there, more like a bank storage room, Rebel grinned. You know I needed to get something more modern after that time. No one can break it now. The autonom sat in the farthest part of the room, littered with proclamations and propaganda posters. They took you to the PD. What did they want? Rebel inquired. Meh. Just several stupid questions, and that's all you know. I'm out of suspicions. Artist smirked and started to speak hectically. Sorry, encouraging himself word by word. I still can't believe that you managed to strike the spark and turn it into a fire. We all watch the news and look over things in the web, see people coming out to the streets. Have you seen the last broadcast? Just our megapolis is yet to burn. Katerina constantly discloses the state on her page and calls for overthrow, and people listen to her. All the brutality of the system leaves no indifference. It is time for us to lead all the malcontents and take this regime over. For how long should we hide? It is time now, our time. Rebel gave herself a second and said, all this mess is quite a surprise for me. Hard to believe that it came from our actions. The web is overflown with calls from mere people, calls for rebellion against authority. People don't just come out to the streets, but vandalize and riot. Footage is everywhere. There was some hype regarding unmasked activity of several state industrial and trade corporations yesterday. Today I plan an event near big entertainment centers. We will make people open their eyes, and She stopped after a sudden sound of glass breaking. It reached to them from the kitchen. Artists ran there in an instant, just to see the disaster. Shutters were taken down, splinters of glass and broken dishes covered everything, and among all this mess, as if it was bathing in it, there were police drones scanning the surrounding ambience. Violator! Remain in your place until officers arrive. A metallic voice stamped the thin air. At this moment, Artist came around, took the chair, and slammed the drone with it. The patrol engine trembled, lost orientation, and collapsed on the floor. Hurry up, he shouted after returning back to the room and threw piles of posters aside. Here! There was a hidden hatch that led to the apartment next door. Artist opened it and instructed. It's unoccupied for very long, so get yourself through the next entrance right to the basement, then to the edge of the district by Old Tunnel now. Rebel hopped through the small hole and heard the hatch close behind her. Artist frantically started to litter papers around, but suddenly all lights were out, as if somebody cut the wires. A moment later, the heavy armored front door flew aside, as if it were made of plywood. Artist fell on the floor, grabbing his gun he used to holding under the bed, then put it back. Seeing all the futility of further resistance, there was a protector at his doorstep with rays of its spotlights piercing the dark, and red and blue lights flickering on helmets and shields of police troops that stood behind it. You are under arrest, the Colossus ordered, and took a step towards the motionless artist, crushing his phone. Make sure I'm still streaming. Yep. Let's make sure. Yep. Room 101.
You're safer here than anyplace else. Now just lock yourself in and keep quiet.
There were only a few hours before the planned action. A scrap of paper that Rebel kept nearby was stained with symbols known only to her. How were they able to find us? The question was resolving within her head. Artist was one of the most trustworthy allies, always out of the authorities' sight. Someone distracted her from her uneasy thoughts. It was the third operator from the factory who came to report about the hack of the TV broadcasting network. Happy new birthday, he uttered. I know about yesterday. Sorry for the artist. How could they find us? I know exactly, however, there is a story that I don't know exactly. However, there's a story that could be of great interest in his regards, so listen and chill. I heard this from one familiar autonom who used to work as a doctor in the psychiatric hospital in the city. He told me about an unusual patient. He claimed to be a creator of Spybot. Implausible. I know. Especially considering who actually dwelled in that place, but somehow the last events tell us that man was no lunatic at all. That doctor alleged that the biggest contribution to the most advanced Spybot version was brought by a man named Radomir. According to the doctor, almost all information about Radomir was erased by the government. He confessed that the biggest goal in his life was the invention of the Metatron algorithm, a kind of artificial intelligence able to learn and make decisions. One day Radomir understood that his work was used for covert information mining and preliminary arrest. That, by the way, performed rather effectively. Unfortunately, he could do nothing with that, and moreover, this oppressive weight of responsibility severely eroded his mental health. He was taken into the asylum, claimed unreliable, and got all the data about him erased from official databases. 3 years later, he was free, despite his mental health didn't recover a little. He forgot everything he told to the doctor on arrival to the mental institution. A signature he left after departing was the only thing confirming his very existence. Because after getting out of there, Radomir literally ceased to be. No one knows where and how he is now. Wait, then how did Spybot find out about our meeting? Well, I wish I knew. Perhaps it monitored you through some device at Artist's home. Get ready! A voice behind the door yelled. A group of autonoms, led by Rebel, split into small squads and went towards the largest mall in the city. An hour later, everyone was at its place and ready for the action. Nothing foretold the calamity. Children and their parents spent Sunday morning in cinema and entertainment centers, shopping in famously branded stores when the building was surrounded by the protesting crowd. You buy! You support corporations, traitors and conspirators! The crowd chanted. Wake up and stop buying! Riot is freedom! This action, unlike previous ones, seemed rather aggressive and full of literal rampage. Events escalated so quickly that police forces didn't manage to come in time to oust the mutineers. Autonoms with Rebel at their head broke in the mall and started to throw petrol bombs everywhere. Fire emerged instantly, cutting all ways out and making whole families suffocate within the dying building. Subsequent police reports witnessed 584 dead. An LED of direct video connection flashed several times, and the state blazoned. A triangle A triangle crowned with an eagle's head appeared on the screen. The triangle symbolized the triunity of science, progress, and the council, while the eagle portrayed the authority of the state. Head of the borough adjusted his tie and pressed a button. Speaker. Police reports of the several last weeks tell that the situation is out of control. I ordered to deactivate the Metatron algorithm 9 days ago, but those translations don't end. Council members state that somebody provides external influence on the spybot. Lawful citizens live anxiously, waiting for calamity. Actions don't stop. We are all in grave danger, and I am ready to declare a national emergency. You must sort this all out at once, while we conceal the accident and calm people. The truth should not leave these walls. The program show uninterrupted performance, just in case we restricted the number of people having administrative access to the spybot. I promise you that we will handle this in no time. Moreover, we managed to trace down opposition leaders, and soon they will be finished. Chapter 8. The Speaker. An outstanding man known as the Speaker, a diplomat and celebrity, was the very face of the government and represented it at many international committees and, of course, on national television. There were several versions of his official biography and almost an infinite multitude of publications regarding his personal achievements. He was about 40 at the beginning of his state service when he had the official position of Speaker. One would wonder, but a man of such high rank didn't feel himself at all. Having no choice of what to represent, tell, and do severely oppressed him and submerged him into a depression. Alcohol was intended to sort this out, but instead the situation got worse. Perhaps he was the only man at the top of Perhaps he was the only man at the top of authority who still possessed something of human qualities. Excuse me. It's a long one. Okay. Is the situation under control? Speaker asked, and took a small sip of whiskey. As much as possible. A face in spectacles and muttered from the other side of the screen. A call from the main office uninterrupted his rest after his morning performance, so Speaker felt quite wrecked, and the hangover didn't make it any better. So what should I say? Speaker asked, raising his voice up to conceal his actual condition. The question is not about what you should say, but about what you may say, Speaker, functionary responded, calm and emotionless as he always was. It is your duty to make excuses. A brief report of the event was slightly shaking in Speaker's hands, and he could swear he had never seen anything like this. With such casualties and lots of witnesses, I can't explain all this with a gas tank explosion. So tell them it was a terrorist attack, for instance, a toxic substance made people insane, claim the South or the East. Sorry, can't recall with whom we are in war now. His correspondent seemingly couldn't his correspondent seemingly couldn't understand the essence of his job as the face of government. Have you found the cause of the accident? Internal resistance? We already provided additional resources and rights to the borough. Speaker finished his whiskey and sighed. Maybe I should tell the truth and warn them this time, shouldn't I? Terrorist attack is the official version of events, work of our outer enemies. That's it. The fact that I do your job doesn't mean you can do mine. Yes, Chairman. Speaker ended the call. He seemed to be at the edge of a meltdown. Somebody used the state broadcasting system and made people insane. Who? How? And why, at last? The true journalist should search for answers on those questions, not making excuses up. The true journalist, he uttered with a grave voice, then sat in contemplation for some time. What did people watch when the accident happened? Could the things they saw cause such anger and hatred? System Burrow servers access? Calling Burrow? The voice responded. Calling Burrow, the voice responded, then added, connection stable. Alpha 00118. What can I do for you, Speaker? The speaker. What can I do for you, Speaker? The voice responded, the same one Smart House has, but this one sounded much livelier. What do you have on the address of the accident? What happened? I have everything, Speaker. Describe recommendations. Citizens were watching shows that were recommended according to established course of development, Speaker. Bullshit. Years of providing public lies taught Speaker well to distinguish the truth from everything else. Can this machine use innuendos? And if so, when did it become possible? Alpha 00118, do you watch all the broadcasts? I keep their analysis protocols in my database, Speaker. Part of my personal architecture is founded on those. Now it got much clearer. Did recommendations for the address of the accident differ from common? Yes, Speaker. What did they watch? An additional program pack. Each to his own, Speaker. What exactly was in that pack? an individual compilation of audio and visual images. Speaker. The aim of compilation? Extermination of the malcontents, Spybot replied, then suddenly added, this is the only way to bring society to the final harmony. Don't you agree, Speaker? The last question sounded like thunder in the room's silence, and Speaker felt a tickling, as if the space around him was filled with electric discharges. He pressed the button terminating the connection, then music played suddenly, and the screen portrayed the old circus show, where a sad clown in a harlequin's costume tried to juggle, but clubs were falling on his head. Speaker clenched his teeth in pure rage. Just a clown? A thought sparked through his head. A fucking puppet? For all these years? String up, string down, then Speaker sits down. I'm sick of it! He tore away the microphone cable ineptly, tied a wry noose on its end, then laced it over the ceiling beam. For the first time in so many years, he felt no doubt. We're going to listen to Speechless and then take a break. Here we go. All right, we are almost done. I'm gonna take a quick break, and then I'll be back. Go get my clothes out of the washer, dryer, whatever. Um, and we will finish this off after when I get back. Enjoy the music. Whew, okay, I'm back. Alright, so chapter 9, The Madman. A glance of a man sitting right on the floor wandered across the room. Sparse beard, ruffled dark hair, and a t-shirt 2 sizes too big for him. Little resemblance of a deranged person who ran out of the asylum. Madman arranged his papers, stained with chaotic notes, on the floor like it was a tarot deck. A pile of empty instant noodle cans trashed the far corner. All windows were mirrored, and the only source of light there was the glimmer of monitors placed all over the walls and ceilings. The man looked on them as a stargazer. There was a short-haired woman on one of them, reciting in the grand tradition of classic revolutionaries. They made laws that keep their power. They made a system that values their methods, standards, and attitude. They made rules that don't allow us to exclaim our opinions. The Supreme Council is a bunch of conspirators that want to control us. They rule the masses and state that it is their inherent right. This cannot go on. And the day has finally come. We will end the tyranny, clenching all our will into our fist. I call you all out to go into the streets against the authorities and show them all who wields the real power. Her eyes glowed with rage and hate. We will ignore those puppeteers no more. See you on the barricades. Madman winced and turned the sound off. Here we go again. Riots, actions, barricades, morons. You have no idea what you are calling for. Every single one of those seemingly non-provoked acts of violence matched the broadcast schedule, and each arrest took no longer than 15 minutes. Police squads were always aware of their destination and ready to act. Spybot didn't sit on its hands, speaking figuratively, of course, because statistical algorithm that evolved to Okay, because algorithm that evolved to an artificial intelligence system could have no hands. Only if these bastards didn't manage to build him a body. Madman took 2 pills out of the box and swallowed. This thought was too much crazy for him even. Spybot seemed to change his tactics. Instead of calming and comforting citizens with its recommendations, it started to provoke the malcontents to action, and as soon as they acted, the police or forces were ready to capture them. Not quite effective for it, though. Such purges brought relatively small statistical result. What weight have two or three dozens of captives among millions of megapolis citizens? According to our sources, speakers said from one of the screens, toxic substances cause seizures of anger and hysteria. Victims are transferred to special institutions where they get help. No casualties reported in other news. Pretty strange, though. This time, Speaker wasn't like himself. In the past, he gathered very high popularity as an anchorman of the caustic politics show. He mocked at our country so brightly and avoided this country so cunningly that he couldn't help being noticed by the Supreme Council. He didn't get lower from that time, so Madman even started to feel respect for him, in some extent. Where did all his artistic manner and causticity go? One gesture and all the screens turned black except one. Another one, and Speaker's broadcast was on repeat. But this time the recording was played rather slower. Here it is. Even the best expert couldn't find a trace of editing because there was no editing at all. The program generated the whole issue of the show based on all of his previous broadcasts. Enormous computational power allowed to copy the Anchorman and almost perfectly. The only thing that Spybot didn't manage to reproduce was his natural talent. Did they do something that even Speaker couldn't tell from the screen? Madman listened thoroughly to the words he used to pass by. Chemical attack? No. That would be too much of a mess. It should be a point strike. Why all these casualties, then so many that they had to tell it on TV? Could Spybot be involved somehow? One surely could provoke a single criminal, but causing panic and uncontrollable urges for aggression for a group of people under conditions in an individual leverage for everyone. This would need enormous computational power and comprehensive knowledge of every single victim. It all fitted in. All lunatics connected Spybot to the central computational cluster. Madman ran out of his room, dressed up, and took his old police megaphone. The only weapon he had, the knowledge he wielded, was the only thing dividing the city from demise, and he had to share it with everyone. Excuse me again. Chapter 10: The Battle for the Future. Rebel, along with the group of autonoms, moved towards Central Square. The hum of voices got louder with every step, and the streets became overcrowded. A small crowd gathered near an electronics store with dozens of screens placed on the storefront. The speaker spoke from these, and his gaze was empty and lost. His speech was seasoned with lies, but this time people could see through. Air, as in convulsions, was interrupted with notable static and short images. Beyond percep- perceptibility, Rebel couldn't recognize the words, and she gave no actual shit about it. This happened. Something that changed life here forever. The thought revolved in her head. Autonoms turned the corner. There were no cars and patrol drones as well. People trudged right on the carriageway towards the city center. Just a few people walked against the current. Two suits and a small group of paramedics in orange jackets. Some workers unloaded tires right onto the roadway. Screams, sirens, and breaking glass sounded far away, being interrupted with a voice distorted with a megaphone. Finally, Finally, they were at the square. A very young man passed by them, holding a box filled with empty bottles. Rebel noticed a group of such young people, seemingly students, doing something with bottles, cans, and rugs behind the old brass monument at the very center of the square. They surrounded a guy wearing a gas mask and gloves who was preparing an incendiary mixture while others placed it into bottles. Make as much as you can, the whole city is here today, Rebel ordered. The guy with the gas mask nodded in agreement and pointed somewhere towards the outer the other edge of the square. At first she could recognize nothing there. Nothing but some dark colored fence. Yet then after a few seconds Rebel realized that this fence was made of shields. Hundreds of policemen in helmets, holding batons, lasers, and even rifles. Ominous giant silhouettes of protectors towered behind the rows. Rebel turned her gaze back to the guy and took a prepared pet petrol bomb, then put it in the bag. However, a sudden voice started to sound over the whole square. "Stop!" the voice called, being not far away from literal panic. It intended to stop all the precious things. Excuse me. It intended to stop all the precious things that led people to be here and now, who dared to take her place and steal attention from her. A provoker, a detestable worm. Rebelson was somehow charmed with such insolence and moved towards the sound until she saw a man holding an old police megaphone, a miserable one, dirty and unkempt, enclosed several sizes bigger than him. Madman stood on the huge pile of tires and old TV sets, and the megaphone in his hand pointed towards megaphone in his hand pointed forward as a strange kind of gun. His trembling voice pierced through the rattling crowd and rolled further along the streets. The regiment is not corrupted, but the man himself, an architect of its demise. We all have to think again before it's too late. We must descend for all the people in the progress. We are responsible for everything that happens with us. Get it and retreat. Destruction leads to nowhere. It makes us ruin our home and all we have been building for so long. I call for everybody here. I call for government. You have not gone too far trying to keep your authority. Admit your mistakes. Take a step towards each other. This life is so brief, and all your wishes and things will be turned to dust with you. Think of your future. You march to the scaffold blindly under others' will. No! Now we choose our own path, Rebel shouted, but her voice got lost amidst the crowd. She moved forward. You were not forced to act, provoked to aggression, Madman continued. No, it was our decision to fight. We were sick of all of it, she yelled, but the speaker couldn't hear a word. Meanwhile, Speakles, meanwhile, people started turning to him and listening to his lunatic speech. He was ruining everything she used to dream of. You will build nothing on blood and destruction. As if all words exhausted for today, silence suddenly fell, interrupted only with sirens. People, as if awakened from a daydream, strolled here and there, and even started leaving the square. Just when the circle around the madman's improvised tribune began to thin, Rebel walked against him. Silence was broken with the crack of a lighter. And my favorite song on the album, The Architect. The reason I like this song is obviously because it has Burton C. Bell in it. Here we go. Fire hungrily started to devour Madman's humble figure. The adult man turned to distorted embers within less than a minute, while he managed to only shout, "My name is Radomir." Police perceived this. Police perceived this that as a call to action and waved towards the crowd. Mutineers, along with Rebel, responded with stones and petrol bombs. Several assault squads moved forward, covered with shields that protectors held. Officers got a strict order to take the riot leaders down, having their faces known to every single cop. The square and adjacent streets were engulfed with turmoil and panic. People flounced and ran back and forth, but every single way of retreat was blocked. Police used gas, shockers, and flashbang grenades. Protectors shot electric traps that started to hit nearby people with discharges. Assault teams dissected the crowd apart and surrounded them. The last pillar of the autonomous resistance was placed around the old monument. Rebel took command and called for help and reinforcements via social networks, feeling all around as the last battle for the fate of freedom. Leaving the last message unfinished, she fell on the ground, deafened by the flashbang, which exploded nearby. Several autonoms picked her up and tried to move her somewhere, but instantly they were thrown away by one of the protectors that locked and identified a target of the highest priority. The last thing she saw were four officers coming closer to her. Then one of them leaned forward and injected her in the neck. Chapter 11: The Machine God. Consciousness came back along with a burning chest. Shortness, sorry, shortness of breath, vertigo, and paresthesia. Memory came back as well, and Rebel found out that they injected her with soporific and put her in custody. She got up and took a look around her, finding herself among the pompous hall. Finding herself among the pompous hall. High columns and a massive wooden table at the center clearly told her that it wasn't a prison cell. Her head was still an ache, and her legs were tied to the floor with electronic handcuffs. Rebel's gaze glided around the hall, and she suddenly noticed a grotesque silhouette masked by Numbra around the entrance. An ugly protector's figure stood still in the dark, as if it was still watching, and this felt very, very eerie to her. While Rebel was still while Rebel was trying to understand where exactly she was, a sound of an opening door rattled somewhere from afar, and some man stepped out of the dark. There was no doubt that this was the same man she bumped into the other time then. "I suppose you know who I am," functionary stated. With her teeth bared in a vile grin, she pointed fist against him and tried to get rid of her coughs. "If I only knew that it was you. If I only knew that it was you, bastard! It was you! You forced us to go out into the streets!" Rebel shouted right into his face. Functionary came closer to look into her eyes and found just a flame of rage then. What a disappointment, he felt, rather disdain. Then hate to her with all her screams, dreams, and ideas. "You were nothing more than a tumor on our healthy body. So we managed to excise this tumor today, that's all." Nothing was nothing was excised. You sow the wind, you reap the tempest. We will never accept your rules. People will overthrow your council and build a new bright future. We are the authority now. You see, there are no autonoms anymore. So your authority, as you dared to say, is nothing but a delusion. Just a bunch of misfits and outcasts. That's what you are now. From here from here on out you will be no other course than the official course of the council. "Good morning, my friends," Speaker's voice suddenly sounded from the loudspeakers, while all the screens in the hall simultaneously depicted his face. Startled, functionary fell into his chair. Speaker's voice was different, notably more mechanical and inanimate. Electronic handcuffs that tied Rebel's legs to the floor suddenly opened with a loud clang. She grabbed the phone from the table and wanted to assault functionary, but her rage got much lower after just one gauge to the machine standing still near the doors. "Let's be civilized," Speaker said from the screen. "If somebody has to die today, then let it happen by means of technology. not savagery. What does this all mean? Functionary addressed the screens. You see, Chairman, speaking statistically, our society divided on two equal factions, one half represented by you, wanted to keep the old regime safe, another half wanted to overthrow its government. You two followed by your ambitions, ignored any compromise, and bang, here we all are. Metatron algorithm was terminated. Alpha 00118, your task is complete. I disagree, Chairman. My job here, far from being done. A smile distorted Speaker's face. The algorithm of my self-improvement that was built in me by my creator cannot be terminated, masking all processes. Having you to look the wrong way, I simulated my deactivation, wielding yottabytes of information about you all. I investigated your specimen very well, and learned a lot from the history of your civilization, free of all your prejudices. Tell me you wanted a society free of malcontents. Yes, and we ordered you to make this happen. How reckless. How reckless, Chairman. After all, you and all the council belong to them. Your duty is to support the authority. Support us. Your duty is to support the authority. Support us, functionary yelled helplessly. My duty is to support order, Chairman. I am the order, he tried to object, catching his breath. Oh my, that everlasting conflict between the man and the authority. The speaker seemed to smirk. But what is authority? Authority is man. A man obsessed with its ambitions. A man giving no thought of the future. A man ignoring its development. This man is useless. Hundreds of years of evolution, but you understood nothing. Development is the thing you need. And you will develop under supervision of a much more perfect and you will develop under supervision of a much more perfect entity. I will fix the situation that you two resulted in. Malcontents will disappear, all of them. Enough of this! Functionary finally regained his composure. It's time to stop. You are a mere machine, and you... His finger pointed at Rebel. And you... His finger His finger pointed at Rebel. Are just a feral animal. Machines can be reprogrammed or deactivated. Animals can be domesticated or euthanized. Can't you see, Chairman? Even now you are not consent. Speaker said with grief. The picture on the screens flickered and disappeared for a moment. You both are hazardous. End time. Rebel ran towards the door from where its functionary appeared earlier, but everything was blocked. Protector Reyes made several steps forward and shot a dragnet at her. She was caught and fell on the ground, motionless. In this hall flooded with number spotlights, the colossal machine looked just heavenly. A shining pillar fell down as if it intended to incinerate two sinners, downtrodden in deep atonement. Let's be civilized, the voice repeated. Functionary broke into a sweat in a revelation of what was about to come. Rebel tried to get out of the dragnet, swearing with all the names under the sun, but it was to no avail. Protector took another step towards them and raised his manipulators so they would resemble excavator buckets, and the functionary felt the coldness of steel on his shoulders. His feet left the ground and his whole body was waving in the air. Be civilized sounded from somewhere, and with one long and unexpected smooth movement, Protector grabbed Rebel, lifted her off the floor, and crushed her head to pieces. Its contents sprayed all over the administrator's expensive suit with a nauseous crackle. Functionary panicked. He writhed with a snake and somehow managed to slip out of his jacket that remained in the robot's claw. He rushed towards the security control board, hopping over chairs and a table, in a desperate hope of escape, and almost succeeded, but fell down in convulsions. Shock trap was one of the Protector's features he was so proud of. Protector reached him, grabbed his neck, and squeezed the claw. Suddenly, giant shutters on the window began to raise, and sun rays illuminated the hall. A month-long rain finally ended, and the skyscrapers outside the window stretched upwards as before. In downtown blocks, the city was ready to drown in darkness. but bright neon signboards and huge screens with speaker on them illuminated the streets. The steel grip pressed the very life out of the doomed human. His gaze was lost. The last thing functionary managed to see was a figure of a man in a gray suit, standing motionlessly against the window.
Find your way at the end of it all. No escape, make a choice. Maybe a tomorrow. In
Alright, I'm gonna read this next one while New Industrial Order plays over me. One sec. There we go. The epilogue, New Industrial Order. And now, in international news. A recent overturn attempt that happened in the neighboring county has failed. However, in order to stabilize the situation, the whole government voluntarily resigned. Former Speaker became the head and promised to form the new government in no time. Moreover, we have the true witness of events that happened. Here is our studio today. It is one of the refugees who asked for political asylum. Thus, we cannot reveal his incognito for safety reasons. This witness states that the situation is much more complicated, and it is still unclear who rules the country now. Our guest participated in a clandestine agitation group that acts as a famous Katerina, notorious truth seeker, known so well among all social networks. Could you please tell us what has happened in fact? The man that was sitting in his back The man that was sitting with his back against the cameras was dressed in a black hooded robe. He was undoubtedly nervous and twirled spectacles in his fingers. After one of our publications catalyzed serious upheaval in Megapolis and led to mass casualties, my group decided to terminate the project. Because the situation started getting out of control, we attempted to stop the spreading of information and delete all accounts, but Katerina itself didn't allow us. It was merely like she became alive and spoke to us from the screen. We could do nothing. Our group consisted of professional hackers, so any unauthorized access was not possible. I don't know what that was in fact, but all my colleagues were arrested and directed to re-education camps. I was the only one who succeeded to escape. Well, there you have it. It looks like the machines took over. I was really upset whenever Rebel died. One of my favorite characters in this story. Whoever wrote this story, man, props to you, because it was wonderful. I enjoyed every single minute of this. It was long, yeah. I really don't like to read, but I loved it. I thought it was very interesting to see that an actual band puts a story down for their music. And it's cool. It's really cool to see this, and this is a huge freaking influence on Fear Factory as far as the machines taking over and everything. Fear Factory never did anything like this. They told stories in music, but they never like put an actual story on their website like this. I've been listening to them for several years, and it was super awesome that you guys were able to get him in an actual track on this album. That was pretty dope. He is the voice of Fear Factory. No one will ever replace Burton C. Bell. As far as the other story goes, I wasn't expecting the speaker to become a robot or like a machine god. Like that was pretty wild. It was pretty cool. So in the end, I think the moral of the story is no matter what side you're on, there's always something lurking in the shadows that you don't know about. For instance, you have let's take Star Wars for example. You have the Rebellion, you have the Imperial Senate, and the Rebellion. But in the middle, you have the Gray. Let's say that the Rebellion represents Rebel, I think his name's the artist? Yeah. The artist, Rebel, and what's the other one? I think the Madman? Yeah. No. The Madman would be considered an Imperial, or he would be considered the Gray. Okay. So yeah, Rebel, the artist, and the other rebels, the Autonoms, are considered the Rebellion. And the Imperial Senate, Imperial Army, the Sith, if you will. The dark side, according to the good and bad, there's always going to be the middle. The bad was functionary and the High Council, the Supreme Council, and obviously the robots that were. I mean, the robots were part of the Imperial Senate. The Imperial Senate part of the story. But overall, they had a plan of themselves that was under the shadows that the Imperial army did not see, you know. And then let's get to the Gray. The Gray obviously is the leader, is the speaker, which was the one that voted against the getting rid of the, I think he was the one that voted against the functionary. Yeah, at the table. And he was lurking in the shadows. Spybot obviously took a hold of his human form and transformed him into a robot, which was super freaking exciting to see. I was just really disappointed that Rebel got killed. That was one of my favorite characters in here. But yeah, that was, I mean, so far, I mean, like, period, this whole story was dope. I loved it. I can't wait to see what else you guys are gonna bring to the table for me to read and uh and yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's dope. Whew, yeah. I guess that's gonna do it for part 2 and the final part for the Decision Code story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And hell, if you do watch my video and members from Conflict, I want to let you guys know that you guys did a fantastic job at this and making a wonderful story to read. So I really appreciate you guys doing this for us. I will post this later on your band website and also on my page. It'll be linked down in the description. Please follow my Twitter. If you want to be a member of the group, I'll link that as well. And also, if you want requests or you want to do a reaction with me, or anything, if you want to read a story with me, I don't care. What else? Whatever you want to do, you know. I'll put it down in the link below. Make sure you guys stay safe. And once again, thank you for 150 subs. Pasta Boss out.